Hey guys, what is up? Like I said before, there is another lore review in the works, and that is this one. I'm here today to talk to you about Flesh and Steel, a Noctis and Lux story by Guy Haley. Now this is a really interesting book. It's a newer one. I believe it was written in 2021 or 2020. Let me double check real quick. First published in 2020, so there you have it. Pretty new book, and I gotta say, it's way better than it has any business being. It's a quick read, just about 300 pages, and it is a very interesting blend of, you know, the classic Warhammer 40,000 lore and Imperial stuff, and then also a detective noir murder mystery, which is kind of a match made in heaven. Noir is already kind of grimdark to the point of comedy, and 40k is also kind of grimdark to the point of comedy. So these are two genres that I think are really like well suited for each other, even though I wouldn't have thought of it otherwise until I read this book. Guy Haley once again really shows his expertise and knowledge of the universe with this book. And what I really like about it is it takes a much more street level approach than most Warhammer literature I've read thus far does. You know, you have books like Xenos or The Great Work, which are, you know, planet spanning massive conflicts, you know, fates of the world type of situations here and there, every which way. Whereas this one, very straightforward, involves a couple of murders, a couple of people getting taken down in a very similar manner that would be akin, you know, to like a serial killer sort of situation. Not to spoil too much. In fact, I don't think that spoils anything, hopefully. Guy Haley, who did write The Great Work, by the way, is able to shift his perspective to something a much more localized, a much smaller scale, and still make the stakes feel just as high as in The Great Work, or as in any other sort of like more epic Warhammer novel. And I found that to be really refreshing, a refreshing change of pace to just see how the normal ordinary Imperial citizen, some less ordinary, some more ordinary, deal with life and how terrible everything is in, you know, the grim darkness of the far future. That was really interesting to get more of like a slice of life of these different characters and their interactions, and how someone who is, you know, maybe not a space marine might just go about living their life. The main character, Probator Simon Noctis, is presented initially as, you know, a hard-boiled detective, but he does eventually, and actually quite quickly, develop into a much more complex and nuanced character that works really well as both the protagonist of a noir story and as sort of a commentary on the extreme classism that exists in the Imperium, which is one of the main sort of themes of this book. And that I thought was a really kind of interesting dichotomy that was brought about by the main character, and a really nice shakeup to the genre of sort of noir fiction, and also, you know, Warhammer. The other main character is a tech priestess, Row 1 Lux, a member of the Collegiate Extremis, which is sort of like internal affairs of the AdMech. And she's a really interesting character as well, being someone who's converted into the Mechanicum and not born of it. So she started life as a normal kind of human, and then, you know, saw the light of the Omniscience glory and decided to become a part of the Mechanicum through recruitment, which doesn't happen super often for that faction. I think a lot of them these days are just kind of used like vat-born babies and stuff like that. You know, it's a lot easier to indoctrinate people from birth and whatnot. But she's also a pretty interesting character and a well-written AdMech character. We get to see a lot of stuff from her perspective, and Guy Haley once again shows his chops writing AdMech here. He knows how to handle the weird, ultra-logical approach of an AdMech priest or priestess, and it's really well written and well handled, and she feels very true to the nature of her station as sort of an admech, like kind of police officer, kind of detective, sort of like their closest equivalent to what we would think of as a detective, I suppose. This book being called Flesh and Steel, admech is one of the most important parts of the book. They feature greatly as one of the main points of interaction. And just as well as Guy Haley has written the character of Lux, he has also written the rest of the admech interactions extremely proficiently. We really get across the sort of like terrifying, unnatural, and just bizarre nature of the tech priests of Mars, or in this case of whatever the planet is. But they're in the admech enclave of Steelmound, and there are just some really wild things happening there. And from Noctis's perspective, we get to see him kind of interface with the admech in a way that a lot of normal people wouldn't be able to, with how secretive they are. But as a result of these murders and the active sort of crime situation that's happening, he gets access to their facilities, and we get to see sort of what more of a normal Imperial viewpoint would be of the admech, and that is handled extremely well. And it's absolutely riveting to just read through his sort of like horrified reactions to everything that they're doing over there, and what these sort of like weird amalgamations of technology and humanity look like, feel like, and what his sort of whole experience of interacting with them is. I'm a little bit mad because I feel like one of the characters in there was similar to a character concept I had for one of my tech priests, and it's in this book. Very similar, very similar sort of concept going on. So I'm a little bit salty about that, but what are you gonna do? It happens. No idea is original anymore. Nothing's unique. But I did enjoy the interaction with that specific character as well. And if I eventually make a model of them down the line, you read this book, you'll absolutely know who I'm talking about. The dynamic between Lux and Noctis is also very interesting, as they become, in Noctis's eyes, friends and compatriots and potentially romantic, and in Lux's eyes, absolutely none of those things. Space Marines are known for being transhuman, but the admech are very, very transhuman as well. And her viewpoint on her relationship with Noctis is a bit of dramatic irony and a little bit of levity given to a fairly serious and fairly straight-laced story. But it's those moments of levity, Noctis himself being a very, sarcastic, hard-boiled detective that he is, often interjects with a, sly comment or two. And it's those moments of levity that I think bring it to sort of like, not quite the level of like MCU, but in a similar vibe of there's drama and tension, but there's also, these people are just living their lives. They're going to joke around and try to make the best of their situation. So overall, a very well balanced read, a quick read, very cinematically written. I could very clearly kind of visualize these scenes that were happening as they played out, much like in the great work. Overall, I think out of a score of introduction to the series, readability, general ease of entry, I would give this book a 4 out of 5. I think it is extremely easy to read, and there's not too many concepts that you need to understand before getting into it, because it doesn't really deal that much with the sort of grand narrative of Warhammer. It's just a couple of these characters that makes it extremely readable. And in terms of lore faithfulness, I mean, it's got to be a 5 out of 5. This is probably thus far the best admech book I have read. Absolutely, I think the handling of the faction is absolutely spot on, and I think the handling of the other Imperial characters is also spot on. And yeah, just a great, faithful recreation. It's everything I look for when I look for things representing admech and their sort of lore and history and interpretation and things like that. Overall quality of writing, I think I would also give this one a 5 out of 5. This is one of my favorite Warhammer books that I've read thus far. It's up there with Xenos, in my opinion. The subtitle of this book is a Noctis and Lux novel. as far as I understand, is currently the only Noctis and Lux novel. But because of that subtitle, I really hope Guy Haley writes some more of these and it turns into a more established series, because I could see it becoming as big as something. Well, I mean, it's hard to be as big as Xenos, but like I think it's of that quality, and I think it has legs to become an established series in the Warhammer universe. Please give this book a read, give it a chance. It's worth it. It honestly is. I would say between Xenos and this book, if you start with either one of them, you're gonna have a really good time. Follow it up with the great work. You know, if you're interested in AdMech, Space Marines, Necrons especially, these are all great sort of entry points into the Black Library and their series of books. All super accessible, and they're all really well written, very interesting. Highly would recommend Flesh and Steel. Guy Haley, I think, hit it out of the park again. He did it well with the great work. And yeah, absolutely. He's on a roll right now. Flesh and Steel, fantastic read. And it doesn't take very long to read either. So it's not even that big of a commitment. But anyway, if you like this review, please be sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe so you don't miss any more. I'll be doing some more color theory videos, I think, coming up soon. Although my move is, again, quickly approaching and things are getting busier and busier as that date approaches. But until then, I will see you guys next time. Peace.